Roads are a rather ubiquitous type of terrain in Battletech. You can find them in places where it might not make logical sense for roads to actually be built. Since we are developing a system of modular hexes, our goal is to make a road that looks good and is consistent, and I think I've done that. Today we're going to go through my process for making an asphalt road in miniature. Let's get started. We need to talk about the supplies we're going to use. These supplies are going to be in addition to the typical hexes we work with. See my prior videos for information on those. First, we're going to be using a thin cardboard cut at consistent widths. I'm going to be using a thinner chipboard than the typical graphics chipboard that I usually use. Cardboard from a cereal box or the like would work perfectly fine. Any method of cutting these that you can make consistent will work. Myself, I use a guillotine-style paper cutter. At the edge of this paper cutter, it has a metal piece that just sort of happens to be at around 19 millimeters in width. This turned out to be ideal for my use, but if you used a different scale, your mileage may vary. Using your preferred method of cutting, you'll want to cut a large number of strips to use as the road surface. For an adhesive, I'm going to be using Weld Bond. Weld Bond is a PVA glue which works a little differently from normal PVAs. Use whatever adhesive you want to use. I'm avoiding hot glue for the normal roadways to keep the roads as low profile as possible. For the texturing of the roads themselves, I'm using a homemade mixture to simulate asphalt. This is made in a 5:4 ratio of some kind of grit and straight black acrylic paint. The grit that I use is fine stone granules from Ashland, which I picked up from a local Michael's. I'll leave a link in the description to their website, but anything that looks good to you should work. This is basically a fine sand and work perfectly for the job. We are going to be using masking tape or paper tape to make the application of our road texture easier as well. In my case, I'm using a fine surface detail masking tape from Frog Tape, but anything you have should work. Important here, I would avoid using any kind of masking tape that has a strong hold, as it will pull too much away from the surface of the hex. After you have your supplies sorted, we are next going to make a template for the work. We want a quick and easy, repeatable method of making the hexes for applying the roadways, and this template is going to do the job. First, start with the 3-hex configuration that you see here. This configuration will allow us to dock the hexes into the template consistently. Since all of our road hexes will be 1 hex wide, this will give us a repeatable way to do this quickly. Next, grab your calipers. Since my hex sides are 26 millimeters long, I'm going to leave 3 millimeters on each side of the road, leaving me with an even 20 millimeter in the center. This is close enough to the 19 millimeter width of the strips and will account for some slop in the alignment. Set your calipers to the 3 millimeter mark, and using the jaws, mark 3 millimeters in from each side on 2 sides of the hex, as you see here. This gives us 4 markings that allow us to center the road. Take your adhesive, which I'm using hot glue here for the speed, and attach a piece of your cardboard to the hex, centering it between the marks and leaving a good amount of overlap extending on either end. When that is secure, take another hex and use that to determine the distance you need to cut on the inside, and cut the cardboard flush in the back. Next, we're going to make a 60-degree angle gauge. First, take a bit more of the cardboard and overlay it over top of the road to make it twice as thick as shown here. We're also going to take a piece of our thicker medium density chipboard or 2 pieces of thinner cardboard, and we're going to adhere it so that it's perpendicular to the roadways and level with the edge of one of the hexes, like so. By doing this, we'll have a surface where we can place a piece of the roadway cardboard and mark an angle for cutting. While angler, when you are making turns in the roadway, this is my preferred method. Unlike our other tiles we have created on this series so far, the vast majority of roads you build will be able to be broken down into a few types. First, we have the straight road. These can be any length, though I try to keep mine 4 hexes or less long for storage sake. For all the other tiles, these will be single hexes, since any section of road you should be able to make using a straight piece and a turn of some sort. The next tile is the 1 hex turn. This enters from 1 hex and exits 1 hex side away. The next tile is the 2 hex turn. Similarly, this enters from 1 hex and exits 2 hex sides away. From a straight through, then we'll have 2 different types of splits, what I refer to as the left split and the right split. Though these are 2 different Y intersections, you can have a straight road split off and have a separate one exit 1 hex off center. Then we have the Y split, where we have 1 road splitting off into 2 and a Y pattern, as you see here. Finally, we have the crossroads. These will have 2 different straight-throughs that will intersect, generally be 1 hex apart on each side. There are a few others, but these cover the vast majority of the roads you need, and these processes will help you the rest of the way if you need other types of intersections. Now that we understand what we're working towards, we need to next attach the roads to the hexes. Let's start with a straight tile as a demonstration. Place the template and the hex we're going to be marking on a flat surface and dock the hex into the recess of the template as shown here. This is going to place the road section above the hex. Simply use a marker of some sort to transfer the edges of the road to the hex as shown. If you're placing down a roadway that will extend more than 1 hex, make sure and mark the opposite end of the tile to get proper alignment on both ends. If you're creating a turn or intersection, then you simply need to mark the lines for the entry into the hex, rotate it to the exiting hex side, and mark the exit point. I also like to more heavily mark the lines of the road where it gets to be more complicated, or shade in the area that will not be the roadway. As you can see here, using this method, you can make more complicated patterns fairly simply. To attach the roads, it's a simple process. For the straight roads, apply adhesive and attach the cardboard road strip, making sure to use the markings to keep it centered. It's typically best to leave some overhang and then remove it later. Now it gets more complicated. The process will be the same for each tile with a few exceptions. For tiles such as the left or right split, you'll place a straight through road section. And then using a road section with a 60-degree cut, you will connect it as shown here. If you're going to do a turn in the middle of the hex, rather than going straight through, your first piece will end at a 60-degree cut, and then another piece of road with another 60-degree cut will connect to that. The other kind of complex intersection would be when you have something like the Y-split or Y-intersection. In this case, the first part will have two roads connecting with a 60-degree angle. Now you're looking at this and thinking that the next part is complex, but only partially so. You see here that there's a point made by the intersection of the tiles, but you can draw a line parallel to one of them. This means for most of this, we can use another 60-degree cut. For that last little section, you'll need to cut something of the appropriate size to fill in the gap. Typically, this can be done with an offcut made while making the 60-degree sections. Now, the next step is we're going to be texturing the roads. And to do this, we're going to be masking off the sections that are not roads, and then we're going to be applying our asphalt texturing compound on top of that. So this is a simple process. For the straight roads, you just simply tear off some tape, and then you're going to stick it down on the sections there on either side of the road. Since we've got straight edges to the roads, this is real straightforward. For the other tiles, this gets a little more complicated, but it is still pretty simple. You're going to apply the masking tape so that it covers up the section that is adjacent to the roads, just like so. Let's go ahead and stick a couple of pieces of this down here. I just use my fingernails to indent it into the sections there, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and take our sharp knife. I'm going to be using my Olfa blade here. And we're going to be cutting into it parallel to the roadway so that we can pull the section of the tape away that is connected just to the roads. Now that we have our tiles all masked, we're going to go ahead and take our mixture here, our asphalt mixture, which again is 5 parts of grit to 4 parts black acrylic paint. We're just going to slather this over the entire surface, just like so. And I'll end up... I level this so that when I scrape it, it is scraping down, so it's no more thick than just the grit, basically. And then I'll just scrape to either side and scrape to either side there, making sure that it's covering the entire section of the roadway below it, just like that. Now, with that done, you're simply going to go through and peel off the masking, and that will leave you with sharp, crisp sections of the road. Give me 1 second to throw this away here. So you are going to end up having some of that paint and Mod Podge pull away from that section. I'm not worried because we'll be applying more Mod Podge shortly, but you're going to do this for all of your tiles. Apply a level of your mixture, make sure that it is covering the entire roadway surface, peel away your masking, and then let it dry. I'm going to do that for all of these, and then we're going to go on to the final section, which is where we're going to be flocking and finishing the tile. Now we're going to come to the final part of this. We're going to flock and finish the tile here. The first thing we're actually going to do before we get to the flocking part is we're going to dry brush a dark gray over top of the texture here to make the texture pop more. So this is a process you've seen me do before, but it is simple. You're going to take your dark gray paint, apply it to a brush most of all off onto something like a paper towel, and then quickly run the bristles across this. Once we have everything dry brushed, we're going to go through and finish this the way we've done our other tiles with grassland features. We're going to apply in these sections some straight full strength Mod Podge undiluted, just like so. If I get a little bit on the tile, I'm not honestly worried about it. But I'm gonna go ahead and paint all the sides of this with the Mod Podge. Get a little closer in here. You can't see very well. There we go. That's a little better. Just a little dab of glue will do it. Good enough. Then we're going to go through and take our shaker of flocking material, and we're just going to coat the entire tile in the flocking material and then shake off the excess. Just like so. And then we're going to let that dry. Now, once you've got everything done and dried up, we're just going to go through and paint the bases or the edges black again to sharpen that up. And then I'm going to soak the flocking in isopropyl alcohol like I do normally, and then apply a diluted PVA glue to help set it and stick it in place again. I'm not going to apply any road markings at this point. It's not really necessary. It will probably look better, but I'm still trying to figure out a consistent way to get them to apply without using stencils, which, because I hate stencils on these types of surfaces because it never seems to set properly. That being said, that's the entire process that I use when I'm making my road tiles. If you have any questions, please go and leave them in the comment section below. I hope this did interest you. And as always, you have a good day.